Perfect fifths are one of the most foundational sounds in the history of music, and yet we never really seem to talk about them outside of music theory. To me, this is a real missed opportunity, because if you can learn a bit about perfect fifths, you can become much more familiar with your piano much more quickly, and open up a whole world of playing for yourself before you learn anything about music theory. So many musicians use perfect fifths in their playing, and they have no idea about the music theory behind it at all. So I really don't like when people who are early on in their piano journey feel that they are limited by conversations about music theory before they start learning how to play. So I'd like to help with that today. Today I'd like to talk about what is a perfect fifth. I'd like to talk about how you can easily find perfect fifths on your piano without needing to know anything about music theory or key signatures. And lastly, how we can use perfect fifths to help us become more familiar with our pianos, and how perfect fifths can open up a whole world of playing for us before we know anything about music theory or key signatures. A perfect fifth is a combination of two notes, where you start with a note and then add whatever a fifth would be in that first note's major scale. So let me demonstrate this using the easiest key signature of all, which is C major. C major has no sharps or flats, so we'll just be starting with all white keys here. So I'm going to start with a C, and then I'm going to count up 5 notes from this C to find the perfect fifth from the C. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C to G is a perfect fifth. The reason why we call this a perfect fifth and not a major fifth is because composers realized a long time ago that the sound of the fifth is the same whether your key is major or minor. So whether you're playing a C major or a C minor, your fifths are still the same. Composers thought that this was a very special and even sacred feature of the fifth, so rather than calling them major and minor, they simply called them perfect fifths. The perfect fifth was really easy to find in C major because it had no sharps or flats. Where things seem to get a little bit trickier is when you start getting into other key signatures that do use sharps or flats, because now you have black keys to worry about. And it feels like you probably have to know something about the key signatures of these different keys in order to know which black or white keys you're supposed to play. And this is what most beginner piano players do. They will stop playing piano and study music theory for a while and try to memorize their key signatures before they return to play. But this creates a problem for 2 reasons. One is that they're not playing piano anymore, and this feeling that they should learn more music theory is a barrier to them sitting down at their piano again. And this feeling can actually be very difficult to shake. And 2, even if they do memorize all of their key signatures, when they get back to their piano, they often can't recall those key signatures fast enough to feel smooth and comfortable when they're playing. And this ends up becoming extremely frustrating and demotivating, especially when you've put all that effort in towards learning music theory. So I'd like to help with this. When I was learning how to play piano, I did not understand music theory at all, but I really wanted to learn how to play, so I had to figure out shortcuts. Here's the shortcut I figured out about perfect fifths. I noticed that the key signature actually didn't matter very much when it came to finding perfect fifths. I noticed that if your perfect fifth started on a white key, it usually ended on a white key. Perfect fifths that started on a black key usually ended on a black key. The only 2 exceptions to this rule were B flat and B. B flat's perfect fifth is a white note, and B's perfect fifth is a black note. These are the only 2 fifths on the entire piano that are going to have alternating white and black keys. For every other perfect fifth on the piano, A white key goes to a white key, and a black key goes to a black key. So now let's talk about how knowing this about perfect fifths can help us in our playing. Knowing this about perfect fifths can open up some more interesting ways of playing. For example, knowing perfect fifths unlocks a new accompaniment pattern for your left hand, where you start with a root note, find the perfect fifth, and then play the octave of that first note. So if you use the pedal and go back and forth between your first note, the fifth, and the octave, you have a really nice accompaniment pattern that works really well with softer and lyrical songs. Another way it can help you is to unlock chords more easily. If you combine this trick that I just taught you about finding perfect fifths with my previous trick on finding major thirds, you can find any major chord anywhere on the piano without needing to know any music theory at all. So for example, if I were to take any random note, let's say A, and I was to use my trick to find a perfect fifth, I know it goes white key to white key. And then if I were to use my previous trick on finding major thirds, which I will link to in the description below, I can find my middle note, and now I have an A major chord. I did not need to know anything about music theory or memorize anything about the key signature in order to find this. For those of you who play piano more easily by ear than memorizing theory and key signatures, these tricks can help open up a whole new world of playing piano to you today. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions about this. And please let me know if you have any other questions about playing piano to help give me ideas for future videos. Take care.